So, a lot of people celebrate their first 20, 30, 40, 50K months on social media, but nobody actually talks about what happens next. Well, hitting 50,000 a month nearly broke me mentally, emotionally, and physically. And so, if you're chasing these big income months thinking they're going to solve all of your problems, this episode may just save you from the breakdown that I had. Welcome to this week's episode. This feels like quite a vulnerable share. For those of you who are new to listening to this work or have been following me for some time, know that last year in 2024, I made some very significant changes to my business. And I want to share with you some of the shame of success, some of the revelations that I had, the toxicity of scaling, and what I did about it. And I feel like this is going to resonate for a lot of people. So let's dive into just setting the scene of where I was 2 years ago. Now, in the summer of 2023, I had not long moved to Jersey, just the year before. And in this particular summer, my husband and my boys and we'd moved to Jersey. We used to live here in our 20s, had a really great experience of living on this beautiful island, and decided during lockdown that we wanted a life where our kids were safe, had great access to great education, and we had more of this kind of outdoor lifestyle. And so after moving to Jersey in the summer of 2023, my mum came to visit. And it was really lovely. She came over by herself for a week. It was really, really joyful. And I remember on this particular day, my mum and I were sitting in the kitchen and my bank statement was lying on the side, as you do, like ready for filing or, throwing away, not really looking at it. And I remember my mum looked over at my bank statement and she was like, "Oh my God, have you made 50,000 this month?" And immediately I had this money shame response. How dare I make all of this money when my mum financially had to just survive, right? Now, don't get me wrong, we had enough money to get by growing up. My dad was an entrepreneur, is an entrepreneur. He lives separately with his now wife. My mum was a single mum of 4 children and she had a job and her money paid the bills and we just got by, right? But anytime we wanted anything, it was go ask your dad, right? Because my mum didn't have excess money to spend on luxuries. And I remember in that moment feeling like, how dare I make all this money quite easily when other people have to struggle? My mum had to struggle. How dare I be that person who can make money and not have to struggle? And it was a really significant moment, but I didn't realize it at the time. I kind of just shrugged it off. I was like, oh, yeah, like we just had a big launch and it was just a one off. Not actually really being honest with myself and with her by yeah, we're actually doing really well right now. Like we are making that every month right now. Like we are really successful, a good business. And I had this realization of this wasn't just a one off, it was a recurring revenue. And this is what no one tells you about success, is that your nervous system can literally reject wealth because it feels dangerous to have more than people that you love. And when I look back at that time, knowing this about myself, I was like, well, I was so fearful about, well, what happens if I can't maintain it? But also this shame of, well, how come I get to deserve this? What have I done? What makes me so special? Right. And I was like, well, surely it must be a fluke. It's not going to continue. And we can get into these toxic scaling traps where actually what success looks like behind the scenes is very, very different. So what this looked like for me behind the scenes is that I was running around 15 different courses and offerings. I had mini courses, evergreen courses, self-paced courses for people to go through. I not long launched my book, so I was also selling my books. I was doing my podcast. I was speaking. I was running workshops. I had a membership. I had a financial coach certification. I had a mastermind. I had a pensions course, an investing course, a budgeting course. I had all of these pieces in my business. And even just talking about it, I bet you're listening to this going, oh my God, like massive overwhelm, a lot of complexity in my business. And so I had these multiple programs and they were all running simultaneously. And my two biggest like profit based offerings, if you like, the ones that made the most revenue in the business, weren't the evergreen or the self-paced courses because they were at a smaller investment. It was my 12-month mastermind and one of my signature money programs. And we had to, continuously look for clients to invite into those containers. And it was a huge sense of responsibility. And I remember like when we opened up the Wealthy Women's School, I felt this responsibility to then have someone who could be a community manager and someone who could be responsible for replying to client emails. And so the requirement for team members increased. And then I just felt this like huge financial responsibility for not just paying myself, but paying their wages. And it was exhausting. I was constantly selling, I was constantly creating, I was constantly overwhelmed. And the breaking point, I think, for me was that I had built exactly what the business gurus tell you to build: multiple income streams, recurring revenue, a team. But I was miserable. I was successful on paper, but I was dying inside. I really felt the sense of overwhelm, and there were parts of my business that I really loved, and there were parts of my business that I didn't. And I just didn't even have the capacity or the bandwidth to even sit down and think about which bits do I remove, which bits do I stop, because I was feeling like, as a completer finisher, like I have to complete projects, I have to finish things. And I felt like there was no end to this scenario that I was in, right? And that was the summer of 2023. And as we went into the 2024, I had, at the end of 2023, had just received a ADHD diagnosis. And it did explain a lot. It explained a lot about why I love creating. I absolutely adore creating. I could literally sit here and record podcast episodes all day long. I could design workshops and record workshops and speak on stages and do all of those things with ease. But it also explained a lot about how the neurodivergent brain works and how neurodivergent entrepreneurs struggle with more, right? We get into this pattern where we struggle with more things to do because the brain is already so creative in many ways. And we have a million pieces of information running around our brains at any one time, right? It's very difficult to switch off. And this created almost like this creativity trap for me, where what was joyful and easy for me became my like kryptonite. And it kind of led me into this position where I was like, I feel like there are aspects of my business I need to let go of, but I was afraid to do this. I felt like how I'd be letting down my community, letting down my clients. And I just got to a breaking point where I was like, something needs to change. So what did I do? And you might resonate with this. Maybe you are a business entrepreneur and you love creating. Maybe you are the visionary and you've got all these ideas that are going around your head and you just want to take action on them quickly, right? It's one of the side effects of having a neurodivergent brain is that you do take action very often, very quickly. You don't think about it. You don't think about the consequences or the after effects. And whilst that is a great thing, because there are some people who get stuck in inaction, that it does then create these scenarios where we just get overwhelmed and we're like, what do I do? And it just feels so overwhelming to even consider what to do that we just don't do anything. And then we stay on this hamster wheel, right? That is fueled by gurus in the online space who just continue this messaging about make more money, hire a bigger team, create more products, make more offers. And it is exhausting. So what did I do? Well, I kind of went through this gigantic great simplification journey. And the first thing that I actually did is I took August off. I actually recorded a separate podcast episode on this, which I'll link to in the show notes for you, about how to take a month off in your business. And I started to consider how to set up my finances and how to set up my team and my standard operating procedures in my business to make sure that things could work like clockwork, whilst I took this time out to have space, like create space in my nervous system for figuring out what I wanted to do. And so I just pretty much paused everything that I was doing. I took time off on my podcast. Some of you might remember I had a 5-month break in 2024 from the podcast, which is the first break I've had in 5 years. I closed down my mastermind, which was my biggest income generator. I also decided not to do any more launches for the Wealthy Women's School, which was my second biggest, highest income generator. I also let go of one key member in my team and went to hibernate. And I hibernated by traveling around Canada with my family. And it was amazing. I had the best time. And that space gave me permission to really think about, what did I want? Why did I create this business in the first place? And I would take a moment, if you are feeling like this, to ask yourself, what are the aspects of your business that you love? If you were to have a blank piece of paper and you were creating your business from scratch today, what would you do? How would you design it? Because I think we often forget that as entrepreneurs, the reason most of us go into business is because we want to solve a problem, we want to help a bunch of people, and we want to live a different lifestyle. We don't want to be a slave to the 9-to-5 job. And in the pursuit of that, we sometimes forget what actually matters and what is important. And that is looking after yourself first. And I was reminded of that when I went to Necker Island in 2024 with a conversation with Richard Branson. And I'll link again to that episode in the show notes, because his circle analogy about making sure that you take care of your needs first, then followed by the needs of your close friends and family, then followed by the needs of your local community, and then the world. Like, that circle analogy really landed for me when I was on Necker. And I literally, after I'd had this conversation with him, I just burst into tears and had this gigantic hug from one of my friends who was there. And we just sat in this space of like crying and like giving me permission to go, do you know what? You need to look after yourself first. And you need to redesign your business to give you capacity, to give you back some more of that balance and well-being and more joy. And so that's what I did. I took August off. I traveled around Canada, and I really focused back on one thing. And that one thing was about, how do I create more balance and joy in my life? Now, what I did next is I followed a very powerful framework. So the framework that I would encourage you to follow if you are feeling overwhelmed in your business, if you want to simplify how you make money in your business and give yourself back the lifestyle that you wanted to create in the first place, is to follow this framework. And the framework is the rule of 5. The first rule is 1 target market. The second rule is 1 problem solved. The third is 1 offer. The fourth is 1 platform. And the fifth is 1 year. Right? So 1 target market, 1 problem solved, 1 offer, 1 platform, 1 year. And I got a piece of paper and I thought about, who is the target market that I really want to serve? Because you can't serve everybody. In the pursuit of trying to serve everybody, you end up serving nobody. And I do really believe in having one target market. And through that target market, you offer one problem solution. Right? What is the one problem that you want to solve? Going really deep on that problem, not trying to go too wide with that problem, which is where you end up creating multiple offers, right? And literally, like, clients would say to me things like, I need to solve this problem. Like, I need help with, I don't know, maybe it's something like, I need help with selling my business. And I'd be like, right, I need to create an offer that's going to help business owners to sell their businesses. And I go and read all these books and learn all these things. I'd be like, I don't have to be the one to offer that solution in the context of money, right? As an example, you don't have to be the person who solves every single problem that your client has. It's actually a great opportunity to partner with other people and let them be the solution. Build those collaborations in your circle so that you can maybe affiliate for them. You can just refer clients to their work, right? Reciprocity and collaboration. And the one offer, I think, is also really important, because I know as a visionary entrepreneur, like, hearing this, I was like, oh, I can't have just one offer. Like, I want to do so many things. But that's how I got into overwhelm. And so for me, I'm really focused now on one target market, one problem solved, one offer, and mastering that offer completely in its entirety. And for me, that offer is really centered in my work as a financial coach trainer. I want to give the toolkit to other people who want to help their own relationship with money and then go on to help their own clients, and that target market for me is a little bit broader now than it was a year ago. A year ago, it was like going back to helping financial professionals, financial advisors, accountants, and bookkeepers, right? Financial professionals to help their clients with money. And we went back to that as the core offer, right? That is the one thing that at the root of everything that I do, the framework that I've created, the money narrative clearing framework that I now teach as my one thing, is the thing that I know is going to have the biggest impact. Whether it's used by somebody personally to shift their own relationship with money, or whether it is used to help them to help their clients. But it's one framework, right? That's the offer. And that framework I've been building out, like, later this year, I'm going to be releasing like a deeper version of the framework, right? Because it's about mastery of that framework. And so I currently now have my financial coach certification, which is available for other people to use to heal their own relationship with money and then use it to help their clients. And then we're going to go deeper for those people who want to go, into the depths of nervous system regulation and emotional freedom technique, and, some more of the deeper trauma releasing modalities, right? And the one platform, 1 year is stop spreading yourself so thin. You can't be on every platform and master every platform. Yes, you can cross-purpose your content and you can stick it on LinkedIn and stick it on Instagram, but it's not going to get the effect that you want, right? Because you've got to master one platform. And so I made the decision last year in 2024 to really master LinkedIn, because that was where my financial professional audience were hanging out. So I invested in a LinkedIn course. Again, I'll pop a link in the show notes to that. Let me just make a note here so I don't forget. I invested in a LinkedIn course. It was one of the best courses I've ever done. And I really doubled down in focusing on creating great content for LinkedIn, so much so that I became one of the top 30 money content creators in the UK. And it didn't take that long, like 90 days it took me to go from top 100 to top 30. And I was seeing a very significant impact, and I was having some great conversations, some great connections. In the space of that 90 days, I had 4 speaking opportunities, one at the O2, which I unfortunately had to decline. And that visibility strategy was really working for me. And so I kind of, I put some things on Instagram and Facebook, but my focus was one platform, one target market, one problem solved, one offer, one platform. And I committed to giving myself a year to focus on that 5-step framework. And it's hard. It's really hard. Like, there were times where I was like, oh, can't I have more than one offer? Can't I have more than one platform? Right. And as I'm recording this now, almost a year later from when I started this framework strategy, I was like, this is great, because now I have a much smaller team. I know that when I have time to create content and things, I can just focus on that one thing. And it really helped me to go from this business of being massively overwhelmed with multiple products and services to one thing. And despite the resistance, it really worked for me. And that 12 months, I gave myself permission to not worry about what I was making in my business. I gave myself permission to not worry about having to maintain a big team. I stripped back to just having a part-time personal assistant and a couple of virtual assistants to help me with some tasks. And that was it for a whole year. I gave myself permission to live off some of my investments and savings pots so that I didn't have that financial pressure of having to make money. Because when you put yourself under that pressure of making more money, you end up getting into this lack and scarcity mindset, this need energy. I need to make more money. And that's not a great place to be operating, particularly over a long period of time. So I just gave myself permission to still pay myself, but pay myself from my savings pots and my investment pots, so that I didn't have to be in launch mode all the time. And again, it was a hard thing to do. And I had all these stories coming up like, you're a wealth expert. You're supposed to be making loads of money, and you're supposed to be doing it consistently, and because you teach other people this, and all these stories. I'm like, no, I can give myself permission to have some time off and to recalibrate. And I would also just come out of my 9 year in numerology. So I was in a personal year 9. 9 is all about completions, letting go, surrendering, closing off. And that's what I did. I just fully immersed myself. I let go of relationships that weren't serving me. I let go of products, services, team, energy drainers, all the things that were not serving me. And then I went into, where are we now? Middle of 2025. I went into the kind of, in 2024, I was kind of in my then 1 year, which was all about new beginnings. So I was starting to sow seeds for things I wanted to create in the next 9 years. And then as I go into 2025, I'm now in my 11 year, which is all about the spiritual teacher. It's all about going into divine, God, trusting yourself, connection with source. It's very deep and a very spiritual year, but it's also a very volatile year. So emotionally, I know that this year has been very up and down. It will continue to be until my birthday, which I'm very thankful for. It's emotionally, it has been very up and down. But I know that that's because that's based on my chart. It's based on my astrological placings and my numerology. So it's allowed me again to just give myself permission to go and explore more about my spirituality this year. So those are the things that really, really help to support me to navigate away from this kind of hustle culture of make 50 grand a month and, trying to feel like I had to maintain that the whole time. Because the lessons that nobody teaches you about success is that, number one, success can be lonely. Being an entrepreneur can be a really lonely place. And you may be feeling like this too right now. And I decided 2025 was my year of relationships. And so every decision I make in all areas of my life is about, how do I improve my relationships, relationship with self, relationship with others, relationship with other business owners, collaborations, partnerships, all those things. Because I was feeling so goddamn lonely, sitting at my desk or at home all day, going out to take the dog for a walk and that's pretty much it. And so I had to really lean down and back into my relationships. And the second thing that no one teaches you is that success trauma is real, right? I know that if you're listening to this, you may have had experiences where you've had great success and you are worried about what might happen. Or maybe you have had great success, but then something really bad has happened. Maybe you just had a team member that's just been like gone a bit wild, or has like deceived you, or it just hasn't worked out. You know, maybe you've had a big launch and it just didn't work very well. And so we create these experiences that affect our nervous system's capacity. That's what trauma is. Trauma is a disruption to the nervous system, right? It doesn't have to be something that is devastating, right? But success trauma is real. Your nervous system can interpret success as danger. It's not safe for you to be successful. And especially generational money patterns can really affect how much wealth we give ourselves permission to hold on to, permission to succeed differently than your family, right? It's a real thing. The other thing that no one teaches you is that complexity is the complete enemy of clarity, right? More offers don't equal more money, right? These business gurus that say just create something new, like create another thing. No. Confused minds also don't buy. Confused CEOs and leaders don't lead well, right? The power of saying no to those opportunities, or the power of saying no to yourself, like not right now. I will create that later, not right now. And it doesn't even have to be you to create it, right? More offerings don't equals more money. So if you do have an idea, like write it down, put it down somewhere, but maybe turn that into an ebook, or just throw out a podcast episode or a video training or something to kind of get out your system. But you don't have to build a whole product or ecosystem around that, right? So complexity is definitely the enemy of like getting clarity. The other lesson I think that I have learned that people don't talk about is that your creativity does need boundaries, right? Visionaries need creative outlets outside of their business. You know, go join an art class or a painting class, or, you know, just use that creativity in other ways that are outside of your business. Because what happened for me is that when I took time out of my business, I felt so lost, because my business has always been the one thing that's made me feel very excited. And if I do have times in my life where I'm like, oh, this feels really hard right now, I'm like, oh, I should just go and do something in the business. And then it feels really joyful again. And when suddenly, when that business wasn't there because I decided to take a break, I was like, oh, so like, where else do I get this joy? And I didn't mean that in a sense of like, I have a very joyful relationship with my husband and my children, and I love spending time with them. But from a fulfillment perspective of my career, I just felt completely lost. And when I look back on that now, I'm like, I don't want to create a business where all of my creativity relies on me having a business, because what happens if I want to sell that business, right? And we see this a lot for entrepreneurs who sell their businesses and then they're like, what do I do now? They feel lost. We see this in people who retire from their jobs and then suddenly they get sick or depressed because their sense of purpose has gone, right? And so we do need to have creative boundaries outside of our businesses, right? Make other pockets of your life as exciting as building your business. And then the final lesson I wanted to share is that neurodivergent entrepreneurs have different rules. Like, our needs are different. And a traditional business model can actually be quite harmful. Systems that work for other people might not work for you. And it is okay to build a business that works for your brain, right? I really believe that me trying to build a business that is similar to my mentor does not make sense because she doesn't have children. And it does make a difference if you are running a family, right? There is other multiple stresses and things that have to be considered when you have a family. And those family needs, for me, always have to take priority. So my business has to be created so that if I need to drop things at the last minute, or I want to take the summer off to spend with them, that I can do that. If I want to work 9 to 3, which is what I do, the business has to be created in order for me to run a life, right? And have that balance. And being neurodivergent, I know that there are times in the day where I work my best. There is no point in me running evening webinars, for example, because I'm just exhausted. My brain has been working on all day. And so I need an extended period of time in the evenings to be able to calm my nervous system, calm my brain down. If I carry on working way into the evening, I don't sleep. And if I don't sleep, then I'm not good the following day, right? It's this knock-on impact. So I do think that neurodivergent entrepreneurs need to have different rules. They need to have different business models. They need to have different ecosystems to support them, right? So what happened after I shifted and simplified? And this is where I am right now. So I have so much more space in my calendar. I have significant less stress. I have less revenue in my businesses. So I have my UK business and I have my Jersey-based business. My UK business is focused on my financial coach training, and my personal brand is centered around my speaking and my writing. And I have one container in my personal brand business now, which is called the Energy of Selling. And it's like a little mini mastermind for other entrepreneurs. That's it. And it's great, right? I have lower revenue than I have in previous years, but it feels so much more joyful. And I know that after having quite a significant period of time, that I know that revenue will build back up again. And that's also fine. And if it does, it does. If it doesn't, it doesn't. I'm just in a really happy place right now. I have a smaller team. The team are happier. They're more focused. I have much more time freedom. My mental health has improved dramatically. And other areas of my life have had an opportunity to expand. I've made some of the best connections in the last 12 months that I never would have had the capacity to have had I not have created this space and redesigned my entire business model, my entire ecosystem. And so the business coaching industry profits from your overwhelm. The more complex you make it, the more complex they make it seem, the more courses they sell you, the more overwhelmed you get. And wealth is not built in that way. It's really built on focus, not complexity. And so if you're in this scaling trap, if you're feeling any part of this, if your body's oh, I'm really feeling this right now, Catherine, I want you to ask yourself the following things. I want you to audit your offerings. What can you cut, right? What is not bringing you joy? What is not making you revenue? What are the things that are just taking up your energy and your time? The second thing I want you to do is to check your nervous system. Is success feeling safe for you? If there's any aspect of your money stories that are coming up, go and deal with those, right? Reach out to me. I'll support you with that. Because if your nervous system is not ready, then you will self-sabotage, right? It will affect your mental health, and we don't want that in your business. I want you to consider that rule of 5. Where can you simplify, right? Where can you simplify? One target market, one problem solved, one offer, one platform, 1 year. Okay. I want you to honor, if you are neurodivergent, honor that. What works for you? Not a cookie cutter approach or a spreadsheet, right? What works for you? Look at your week, right? Monday's now my relationship days. I don't have any client calls on a Monday. It's just my relationship day, my relationship with self, my relationship with business partners, family. Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursdays are my client days. Friday's my content day, right? I honor what works for me. That works for me. It might not work for you. Find a way to honor that. And finally, really think about this word success. You know, money isn't worth your mental health. Okay. And redefining success for yourself may be the most important decision that you will make having listened to this episode, right? Give yourself a permission slip. Give yourself permission to earn more than your family. Give yourself permission to simplify a complex business. Give yourself permission to succeed in a different way. Give yourself permission to prioritize your well-being over your revenue, right? Because my 50K months didn't make me any happier. They just made me busier. And real wealth isn't just about the money you make. It's about the life you get to live whilst you make it. And if your success is costing you your sanity, it's time to redefine what success looks like. What does it feel like? Right? So I really hope that you have found this episode or this video, if you're watching this on video, useful. I would love to hear your takeaways. Drop me a comment underneath this if you're on video. Send me a message on any of my social platforms. Let me help to support you. I am very open about sharing my own journey and my experiences. And please don't sit there if you are feeling stuck. Always very happy to chat things through with you. So I really hope you've enjoyed this episode. And remember, like, it isn't about the money. It really, really isn't. It's about like living the most fulfilled life that you can, whilst also recognizing that there are seasons in your life. And the season I've just been through in my life has been to take time out, to replenish, to redesign, to recalibrate. And it's been fucking hard. I'll be honest, it's been hard, but it's been the best thing I've ever done. And I really have to just give myself permission and trust to continue on that pursuit of having a balanced life, a balanced business, and really going back to what fulfills me. What do I love to create? What is it that I love to teach? What is the impact I want to have in the world? Right. So thank you so much for listening, guys. And I will see you again next week. Take care.